Hello, everyone. I have Hannah Holmes, who is the founder of Holmes House Creative Company, and likes to say that she specializes in big dreams and brand magic with 7+ years of professional design, marketing, and branding experience. Hannah is passionate about helping female entrepreneurs show up more confidently in business, all while having way more fun and success. Thanks for joining me today, Hannah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So let's start here. What's your story? How did you end up becoming an expert in brand magic?
Well, it's been a long journey. I actually went to school for photography and digital imaging. I dipped my toe in graphic design while I was there, and the funny thing is that I decided that I hated it. So I dropped it in college, graduated with my degree in photography, and immediately out of college ended up with a job in graphic design. It's funny how life works out that way. But I loved it more when I was doing it in the real world. And I worked there for 7 years. I was an in-house graphic designer for a really awesome local nonprofit. But we had lots of branches and different things, and working with music and different artists and tourism and, lots and lots of things locally. But as I was working there on the side, I realized I really want to do more creative things for myself. I want to figure out how could I make my own business? Could I do that, make it work? And I played around with that a lot, but it didn't quite go to plan. I tried to do my first business for about 3 years, and it went okay, but it was never what I wanted it to be. It wasn't gonna let me quit my job or anything like that. And so I burn out really hard. I, put the all the elbow grease in, worked as hard as I could, and burnt out, crashed and burned. But after some time went by, after I kind of let that go, I realized I wasn't focused. I didn't have good foundations. I didn't have a real strategy behind it. I was kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that it would work. And that you can't build a business that way. I mean, I'm sure you know that. And so I finally decided, okay, I'm going to try this again. I've learned a lot. I need to actually use what I've been using in my day job in marketing and branding and all of those things, and actually sit down and work on building foundations to actually build a business that was going to take me somewhere. And within 6 months, I started Holmes House Creative Co. I quit my day job, and now I'm full-time at Holmes House, and it's been a wild ride. It continues to change in what I'm doing and how I'm using it, but my purpose and my foundations have stayed the same. And I think that that's really what's led me to be here today, and how you found me, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And how long have you been running for? So when did you actually physically quit your day job?
Gosh, it really hasn't been that long. It feels like it's been a long time ago now. But I put in my notice at the beginning of the year, but I went full-time on March 1st. So Holmes House launched in February.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, great,
It's
great,
been
great.
great.
So just before lockdown then?
Yeah, yeah, it was a great time to start a business, is what I've told people. I had to pivot pretty quickly because I quit. I went full time, and then I don't know exactly when things were locking down for you guys in London, but here it was like mid-March. So I was probably like 2 weeks into full time, and it was like, oh, things are changing, and people were investing differently in their businesses and their marketing and things. So I had to pivot some, but it was really, in the end, how I had to pivot ended up being very good.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
The pivoting?
sure. So originally I was just a stock shop, styled stock photography, creative assets. You probably wouldn't know it because I seem like I'm very talkative once you get me going, but I'm actually really introverted. And so I was used to working as a graphic designer for 7 years. I'm in my own office, not having to deal with a lot of the outside world or dealing with clients one-on-one or things like that. And so I was like, I want to do something that's going to help people, but I don't want to deal with people too much, So stock photography really was something that I had needed in my business before. And so I thought, I could fill a niche there. There's not a lot of like really colorful stuff. There's certain things that I had found that I was having trouble finding, and talking to other business owners, they were having trouble there too. So that's what I launched with. I launched with a styled stock library. But when COVID happened, I think that people were afraid to invest in tools to use in their business right then. And me as a new stock shop, people were kind of like a little more wary than I think if it hadn't been a different year. And so it wasn't picking up how I had hoped that it would. So what I started to find was, where I had my background in design, I had always had people who asked me, can you do logos? Can you do branding for me? And I had done some, but it didn't used to be my favorite thing to do. And a lot of that has to do with, I wasn't working for myself in the same way. I didn't feel as confident. It wasn't something that I felt like I had the brain power to do, working a day job and trying to build these side businesses. But when the stock shop didn't take off how I hoped that it would, I was still getting requests for branding. And so I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to make this work, I've got to pivot. People are asking me for this. People are seeing the colorful stock and things, and they're excited about that, but they want to invest in something for post-COVID, which of course at the time we thought it was going to be a couple of months and everything would be back to normal. So I started doing branding clients, loved it more than I ever had before, because it's so much different when you're able to craft the entire experience and relationship with your client when it's in your business than when I was working for someone else and I wasn't really seen as the expert or able to I don't know what the right way to say it is. I wasn't able to craft the entire strategy on my own. It was kind of like somebody else was doing this piece and that piece, and I was just pumping out the graphics. And so it's a very different way to create a brand in that way. I'm probably making this way longer than you wanted it to be, Neil. But anyways, I ended up going into taking on design clients, and it has like perfectly balanced with the stock shop as far as giving a higher level of product or service that I can offer to my clients. So it's been really, really fun, and it's helped me to understand my brand and my clients a lot better as well. Like working one-on-one with people, like I'm able to better see where the needs are and how I can help meet them there, and just kind of get ahead of how I'm thinking through strategy for helping people to build their brands and build brands that are not only just looking good, but they're actually really effective.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer of no matter how small or large you are, just being flexible around your clients' needs. It's something that I'm constantly thinking about. Like I've actually given myself a title actually this week or just last week, where I've said to some people in the team that a lot of my time is around the product. So I don't know what the title is, but I know a lot of my day is spent on what's our product? Is it the right product? Is it the right solution? Are we delivering it in the right form, in the right format, in the right way? And I'm constantly thinking about that. And what you said earlier was, you quit your job, then you were being requested for branding projects. I think that's smart of you to be open to that, to listen in to your market and saying, I need to move here because my market is asking me to move here. And often you've got entrepreneurs who hear it but don't do it, or entrepreneurs who hear it and move. And you have to be in business, especially in the early days, you have to be really open. I say early days, I actually believe it's forever. You know how like large businesses are going out of business because their startup comes, out of the woodworks from nowhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to get that point across around being flexible. So tell me, Hannah, what's brand magic mean? Because in my world, we do a lot of the term SEO comes up a lot around getting clients higher in Google and ranking. And the phrase that sounds like voodoo comes up a number of times. Brand magic also has that slight connotation. So tell me about it.
Oh, I love that. What's funny is to me, SEO does kind of feel like magic because it's not my area. And so I'm like, ooh, you can do what? But I think it is kind of similar, like brand magic as far as it's deceptively simple to create elements to a brand that are going to not only make you as a business owner feel um, authentic in what you're putting out and the vibe that you're creating, both in your visuals and your messaging and just like the culture of your business. But it's also going to attract raving fans, both in helping you to know exactly where to find them, but also in helping you and your messaging to cut through the noise so that they find you. And so it really does start to feel like magic. Like you have to put in the work in the front end, but when you kind of get those foundations, you've got maintenance you've got to do always for sure on your brand, but it feels like magic, you know. I just, I don't know how better to describe it. I guess that you kind of are mixing up like a recipe, like a magic potion, and then you wait and you kind of see, and sometimes you've got to tweak it, but when you get it right, you really get it right.
So that makes sense for me in particular, and that really resonates for me because we actually, I've got a really good example, which is ourselves. We went through this exercise earlier last year to move from our old agency name, which was Only Way Online, and we weren't big fans of that name, but it served its purpose, to moving towards Bubble. And we went through this massive exercise. I say massive because when it's your own, you end up spending so much more time. Like it started, honestly, it started in July. I think actually it started on the way to Dubai on a plane, on the flight, I had nothing else to do. And I was like, I want to change the brand. I don't know what it needs to be. So I started working on the messaging, and I probably still have that page that we didn't actually end up using. And it started then, right? Like the messaging, the story, and we worked on it as a team all of last year. So a good 6 months, 7 months. And we ended up launching Bubble beginning of February, where the story, the messaging, the design all came together. And honestly, our first client our first client to see our website and to get in touch and have a call, I could tell the difference, like it was magic. That call, I can still recall it. The things he was saying on the phone was like, I really need this, and I really need that, and I really need that. And in my head, I was thinking, he's literally describing it in a way that our website describes it. And it's the first time I've ever had that experience where I'm no longer convincing people that they need this. They're just reading it, they understand it, they're following it. And you could tell in that conversation that I was no longer selling. I was on the phone having a conversation. And honestly, that one sale, and the client's still with us, I I put it down to the brand work that we put together, the messaging, the statement. So I totally get it. How powerful it can be, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that story so much because like you said, it like the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Like when you do the work and you do that front end, like it's a lot of brain power and a lot of people don't want to take the time to do it, but you save yourself so much time and energy by like clearing off your schedule for a day, a week, however long you can scrape together, depending on what your schedule is, what you're working. If you're juggling a day job and a side job, you know, it's a little bit more difficult sometimes, but
Mm.
take the time to put those foundations together and like it's you're building a foundation for everything else.
Yeah.
If you don't do the foundation, then your walls are going to fall down.
Yeah. Yeah. So to drill into that foundation a bit more, what does it take to develop a strong brand strategy?
Yeah, no, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I call it the foolproof foundations. And again, it's deceptively simple. I mean, it's your personal foundations, your business foundations, and then your visual foundations. And I think of this as like your 3-tier formula to build a very strong brand. And they kind of go in that order: personal, business, and then visual. And personal may change a little bit depending on how big your business is. If you're an entrepreneur working for yourself or building a small business, or you're a bigger brand, you know, it's a little bit different, some of those questions, but basically you're asking, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? What is the lifestyle? So for instance, as a solopreneur, you know, some entrepreneurs want to have the laptop lifestyle. They want to be able to travel. They want to be able to work from anywhere. Some people just want to be able to provide for their family, and that's their dream. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful dream. So you have to know those things to be able to know, okay, well, what kind of business are you actually wanting to build? And your branding ties so deeply into that because of who you're trying to attract. So that brings you to your business foundations. Like, what are your services that you're providing? Who are you trying to provide them to? Is that actually matching up with what your personal foundations are? If you have a lifestyle that requires $1 million a year, you need to make sure your services and your audience are matching to that. And even like all of those things will then tie into your visual foundation. So if you're trying to attract a luxury audience, well, your branding and your messaging needs to reflect that. If you're trying to attract, so I had a client who she's a wellness coach. So, and she wants to help female mothers, well, mothers who are in business. So she's all about like, your wellness is going to help you to get more creative and have more energy. It's not about like losing weight. It's about like protecting your energy and your creativity and your ability to meet these different things in your life. So for her, a big part of her business foundations was creating a culture of like, I want to be your best friend and help you along the way. So that needed to translate into her visuals. You wanted to create like visuals that are approachable and fun and relaxing, and not something that's going to feel unapproachable to the mom who's like feeling like she can't get her energy together and she's worn out and she's got too much going on. So there's all of those things that go together. They're going to have to tweak individually for whoever is building a brand, but you can scale that to different sizes. Like if you're a one-man show or one-woman show, or you're like a huge corporation, I think that those foundations are ultimately always going to be the same.
So that makes sense. And if I was to take that and give you an example where you're sitting with a new business owner who wants to start their new company next week, what would you practically ask them to do or focus on? What's the initial steps that you believe they shouldn't skip, and sometimes is often skipped?
I think that the biggest thing that people skip is those personal foundations. I think that people want to plan their business goals and their personal goals separately, and ultimately it really just doesn't work that way. Now, if you're an employee and it's not your business, that's a little bit different. But if you are trying to build a business, you're helming a business, no matter what size, you really do need to think about what are your goals, or what are your goals for the people in your business. Maybe you have lots of employees under you. I think that you have a responsibility to think about those things also, but it's also so easily overlooked. And then that's how you get people who have been in business for 5 or 10 years and they're like, this isn't the life that I wanted. Like, what happened? Like, I've put everything into this, and you get burnt out and you don't know what to do because you didn't think about how those had to be so interconnected to begin with. So I think that's definitely a hugely overlooked step that people don't initially think goes with branding, but it really does, because your branding has to kind of go back to those foundations.
Got it. One of the challenges that I see is larger companies. They're large, they've got teams. The CEO is no longer the same person that's doing the marketing, if he or she was a founder, and they're no longer the face of the company, which is sometimes an advantage, but also a disadvantage. An advantage, especially when it comes to marketing, because nowadays more and more, we require a level of personalization and a face to a company. So how do you see companies being able to tackle that, where they're larger in size, but consumers, expect a personal kind of face to the company?
No, that's a great question. I think it is going to vary some, obviously, based on company to company. But I think that really what, in simple terms, it would have to come down to them establishing what their brand values are and the culture that they're wanting to create. So I think that this is really good for any size business. I think it's a little easier sometimes for like solopreneurs or small businesses because, like you said, you kind of you have either the same person kind of there helming things that's probably not going to change the same way for a small business, and you have fewer cooks in the kitchen, so it's a little bit easier to do that. But with a big business, I think that they really should have their values established. Maybe it's something they can pull out of their mission statement if they haven't thought about it as like singular values to pull out already. But things like if it's community or it's wellness, or I mean, it could be as broad or specific as it needs to be for what they're doing. But pulling those things out and having those kind of as your guiding posts for the other things that you're building in your business, that's probably the best way for a larger business to do the personal foundations, to kind of go through what those values would be.
Yeah, and I guess just thinking through this, because I've not come across the way you've broken that down between personal, business, and what was the other one? Visual.
Visual.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think if I was to just brainstorm on the spot how a larger company could apply this, like we work with companies where there's 1,000 plus, employees, but we're often speaking to the stakeholders of departments, and so there could be, as part of the personal foundations, a key stakeholder for the departments to represent that department, and then that person
Sure.
is part of the overall marketing. I think that could work.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great way to do it. I mainly work with small businesses, so I don't have like the hands-on experience with the large businesses in that way. But yeah, I love that idea, that because they should know, at least for their department, what are their goals and their values in that department. But company-wide, I think that if they don't already have some of those things established, they probably should take some time to do so, because that's going to go into everything outside of marketing also, like what they're serving, and doing
Yep.
throughout.
Yep. And something we come across quite often is consistency. How are we consistent with our brand or content, which falls under your brand,
Yeah.
across multiple platforms and channels? So do you have any core tactics, tips that people listening in can apply to ensure they have a consistent brand outside of the colors? Like, I keep looking at the pink, red. Is that yoga mats back in the
Oh
background?
no, those are actually it's seamless paper,
Right.
for photography. So this table over here is, I do flat lays a lot for the stock shop, and so that's like photography boards and things. I wish I had room for yoga mats in
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we'll just pretend it's yoga mats for the sake of
Yeah.
this interview. But it's just, uh, for whatever reason I started looking at that. But just imagine you've got those four colors as your color palette, which actually could be a nice color palette. Outside of design, so outside of colors, how do you ensure consistency, and where do you see some issues and just some challenges where, I'm sure you come across things where you say, that doesn't look right, but I'm not able to explain this to the client in a way that they're going to appreciate. What
For
are
sure.
some of those things that you come across?
No, I think that's a great idea, or I mean, a great question, because I think people are very surprised sometimes that branding is not just the visuals, and that in the foolproof foundations that we talked about, like that visuals are the very last thing. And it's because those, especially those business foundations, once you get in there, those are going to help you to create what that consistency should look like. So it's going to be narrowing down what are those values that you're kind of using as guidelines. What is the breakdown of your ideal customer? So thinking about things like, how do they talk, or how do they want to be talked to? That's a big thing in your messaging to kind of keep consistent. when you kind of break down those elements, it comes a lot more naturally to like the consistency comes more naturally than you think. Like, because you're measuring everything against the values and the culture that you're trying to create and who you're trying to talk to. Um, I know I don't know if that's like specific enough in terms of what you're asking. But I think kind of even just having like a list somewhere, whether it's you're creating a brand guide or if you're somebody working from home, like have a sticky note next to your computer, that has those values on it and maybe a description of who your client is. And if you're feeling like you're looking at something and it doesn't quite feel right, well, then go back to those things and see like, okay, so like for instance, you talked about the color palette. So maybe we like this color palette together, but it just doesn't feel like it's the right match for the services or who we're trying to sell to. So that would definitely be like a color palette that's a little more girly, probably a little bit maybe like a 90s vibe kind of going on. Well, maybe you're trying to sell like spa products to high-end clients, and they are the kind of people who really like they want to travel to Bali and they want to travel to like a resort and something like that. So that's probably not quite the right vibe because it's kind of evoking a totally different mood. That kind of vibe would be more appropriate for probably millennials or somebody who is more into they're more into like alternative art, or they really like the nostalgia or those kinds of things. So that's like a really rough overview of where those things might not align, but that's kind of how you will end up getting to your visuals.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and just to add to that, one thing that we did during our rebrand was involving our audience and our target audience within the conversation. So I was often showing logos to customers, or we share an office with another team, and just because they're in the same space, just bouncing ideas from other people, and then taking them through the process. So you speaking to your best customers and customers that you're actually friends with, and going, hey, what do you think about this design, or what do you
Yeah.
think about this messaging? I still do that. So what am I working on at the moment? So I'm working on it's a sales page. No, it's not a sales page. It's an email opt-in. That's what it is. And I was playing around with the headlines, and it got to about 30 minutes in. I was like, I'm spending too much thinking about this headline. I now need to get someone else's opinion. So I sent to a friend of mine who understands this space and kind of sits in that customer audience space, and I sent that across to him, and he gave me his thoughts within a few minutes, and I was much more clearer, and I was actually spending my time on a few headlines now. So getting your audience as part of your rebranding exercise, or changing your color palettes, or anything to do with your messaging, is a great idea, because it takes the validation out of yourself. Validating your own idea is not, I guess, is, unless you're really strongly opinionated, is not going to move the needle in your business. Actually getting customers to go, yes, I believe that, or I would trust that, and that feels like a good fit to the message.
Yeah, I think it's always a good idea to have like outside eyes or opinions on things. Or if, like you said, you had your eyes on it for too long, like at a certain point, you kind of become blind to it. You need somebody else to come back behind you and say, yeah, that's great. You're on the right track. Or I don't know, something feels a little off about that.
Yeah, and Hannah, your website really pops in terms of design.
Thank you.
It's very different to what you see out there. Talk us through what your thinking was around your branding.
Yeah, sure. So it's definitely evolved as we've gone along, because like I said, my services have changed a little bit, so that's kind of forced me to think more broadly about who I wanted to serve and how I want to serve them in different ways. But I definitely female entrepreneurs, they're who I feel really passionate about helping, because I have that personal connection. Like I know where they were and what they struggle with. I want to help people to avoid burnout. And so that's a really big, huge thing. And I think a big part for me of avoiding burnout was putting more fun into business. So I'm all about bright colors. I want you to come to my website or scroll through my Instagram and feel like joyful and excited, and like things don't have to be really complicated. That you don't have to do business alone. This can be a place to come and play, and just to feel like more excited going forward. And also that business, I really believe that our business should not be about building a life that revolves around business. Our businesses should be helping contribute to the life that we want to live. And so I think that that also really plays heavily into why my look and my style is a little bit different, very bright and colorful and a little bit loud at times. But I just want to like shake people and be like, let's have fun. Let's get like going. And it doesn't have to be like work and sweat and tears all the time. It can be a party.
You could enjoy yourself. I mean, that
Yeah.
definitely comes through. I love that phrase that you said, because it literally, and I'll put the link to your website in the description below so everyone can go over to your site. But it does really come through. I love what you just said there, which is, I want to shake you and just say, let's have fun. I almost think you should put that phrase on your website, because it literally fits.
Write that down, actually.
It really fits your design. I'm going to shake you. Let's just have fun. Something along those lines. Okay, so let's talk about your business just a bit more. So for the audience, you said in the beginning that you left your day job at the end of February. So just going up into the run up of lockdown, you quit your job to start the business. Other than pivoting the business, what's worked really well for you to, I guess, get in front of new people, get clients, start doing more branding work?
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I will say, when it comes to doing service work, I heard people say this a lot, and I felt really icky about it at first. But like, talk to people that you know first. Like, don't worry about trying to find like your clients online. I mean, I shouldn't say don't worry about that. Like, it's good to work on that, but like, your first clients are probably going to come from people that you know, or people who are already in your network. And you're going to find that people are actually more than happy to hire you because they know you and they trust you more than strangers do at first. So that's where I started with branding work. I did branding for friends. I did branding for former coworkers, that kind of thing, and then built my portfolio more and my testimonials and the trust factor from there before I started getting a lot of outside or people I didn't personally know. But once you kind of get those first steps, or those first that social proof, it's a lot easier. I won't say it's always easy, because obviously it's not, but you have a lot more confidence too. That's a big thing. Mindset, I think, is everything. Building your confidence, owning your own expertise, it's going to attract people who are excited to work with you. And that's a huge thing when you're starting out. It's difficult. I have 7+ years behind me, and I felt like a newbie though, because my business is only 6 months old. And so I had to get over that. Like, people aren't paying for 6 months, like, of Holmes House. They're paying for all the education, all the expertise that we have. So I encourage people to really take time, whether it's writing it out or asking friends, people you've worked with, like, go through, like, you have way more experience and expertise than you're giving yourself credit for. And it's really, really important, both to you personally, but to your success, and to your ability to attract and close sales, for you to own that. I actually really do think that branding helps empower you in that though too, because it helps you to see yourself as the professional that you are.
Yeah,
Did I miss something? I feel like you asked me something else.
No, I love that. I love that response. My mind's going off with a number of questions. I don't know where to start. So, you mentioned a few things there. So first of all, I totally agree in terms of starting with your family, starting with your friends. So, I can't remember where I found this phrase, but it said something along the lines of your your first three customers will likely come from a family, a friend, and then a fluke. So the
Love
three F.
that.
And to be honest, my first customer, I think, was a friend of mine. Then it was, I'm not sure about the family element, but there was definitely, it was either two friends and then a fluke. There was definitely a fluke in there from a networking event. And actually that's where I spent most of my time was networking and just meeting people and going for coffees. And often I was spending a ton of time speaking to people that maybe it wasn't a good use of my time, but back then you don't know where to put your time. You have to just
For sure.
almost just be flexible and go, why not? It's not like my time's valued at anything right now until my business is bigger. And I think that's often, I've come across entrepreneurs who think that, should I do that? Should I do that? And actually, on 2 weeks ago, in a coaching call with some business owners, one of the ladies on the call asked me, she's like, Neil, should I do that? Should I do that? I'm not sure if I should. And I just asked her, I said, how long is it going to take you to do that, by the way? And this was, but to give you some context, this is, I guess, not relevant to the networking, but slightly relevant in terms of creating content for another site. And I said, how long would it take you to respond to that? And she said, about 20 minutes. So I said, so just do it. There's no harm. Just go and do it. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But it's 20 minutes. It's not like you were planning to do anything else other than watch Netflix or Prime. And then
Right.
she laughed, and now she's doing it. So I agree. Before you even go online, especially in the service-based business, I mean, even product-based businesses, what do you have locally? What exists locally around where you live or in town that you could maximize and leverage? And it's, as soon as COVID's over, it's something I'm going to probably have that question back in my head and go, what should I be doing in this space? Because it's worked for my business as it has worked for yours.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, before I asked the other question, you mentioned mindset.
Mm.
So what do you do around mindset? Because I'm a big believer in mindset. Personally, I don't think I do enough around my mindset. It's almost like one of those things where I feel like, yeah, I should do it. It feels like a bit of a gym membership. I've got it, but I don't actually do it.
Right.
Yeah,
No, it's difficult.
tell me about it.
You have to make it a habit. And when I say make it a habit, it can be a lot of different things. And I think different things work for different people. So I'll say that too. Like, just like everything in business, these methods, there's no one size fits all. Like, there's one size fits some people and other sizes fit other people. And you've got to figure out what works best for you, which can be frustrating at first, because we're all impatient, but if you have to commit to something for a period of time to see if it works. So give yourself a week. Try, like, I like to do gratitude practice in the mornings. I also do some guided meditation. But one of the biggest things, to be honest, outside of like daily little tools like that for me, has been finding groups. I'm in like a women's coaching group, and we talk about mindset a lot. We talk about money mindset, or we talk about confidence and owning your expertise. And a lot of the blocks that we as business owners end up having. And I think that if I didn't have that accountability, like you said, it would be like having a gym membership and not taking advantage of it. It would be really difficult. But now I'm to a point where I realize I might have a day where I just feel like crappy. And I'm like, why do I feel this way? And I realized, well, okay, I didn't do gratitude, and I didn't, do some of the things that make me feel set to go. And so sometimes that's doing yoga, or, taking a walk or reading a book. But find those things that make you feel more open and relaxed. And it's easier for you to take control of your mindset. But you just got to make it a practice. And it's easier said than done. But
Good. You've inspired me. I'll put that back in my at the front of
yeah.
my mind. So going back to growing your business, you talked about making it work offline in the real world, and then you said, now I'm getting in front of new people online. How are you doing that? What are you finding what that works for you?
Sure. So I'm trying some different things. So I am very much about like try it for a little bit. If it doesn't work, shift, try something else. I put a lot of time into Instagram. Well, I'm trying to put more time in Instagram, I should say that. Trying to grow it, trying to be better about it, engaging. I'm doing a 30-day engagement challenge right now, actually, to try to see where my time is best spent there. I am also like trying to be better about if I have people who have interacted with me, starting conversations with them, whether it's via email or the DMs, and just being like, hey, what's going on? How, like, what are you struggling with? Is there any way I can help you? Um, One of the best things that I have done in the last 2 months, 3 months, I can't remember when I did this. I did a giveaway on Instagram. And I knew that so I don't know if you realize this or not, but I also do brand coaching. And so I knew I was going to be adding that or trying that. And so I did a giveaway, and one of the things that you could win was a free 60-minute coaching call. And I asked people, what would you use the call for? Which did a few things. It gave me a lot of insight into what people actually would have wanted to talk to me about, so I could narrow down better what I would want my coaching program to look like, but also gave me hot leads, like people who were interested in coaching. So I had somebody who won the giveaway, but then everybody who commented that seemed like an ideal client who had interest in the coaching call, I sent them a link to if they wanted to sign up for a free 20-minute call. And then everybody who did that converted into coaching clients. So you just have to put yourself out there, try things.
Was
And
that
I think that's
through, sorry to interrupt, was that through Facebook ads to promote that quiz? How did you get that out there?
no, I just did that on my Instagram.
Ah, okay. So your own stories and your own following, basically.
Yeah. I think so. When did I do that? It was July.
Yeah.
I think it was July. I ran it for a week. And I think that I had 4 people that I actually followed up with who didn't win. And because I don't want, with 1-to-1, I don't want a million people in coaching, but that was a totally new service. I hadn't even like advertised it yet. And I basically pre-sold it because I did a giveaway. So
That's great. I also noticed that you're blogging. So
yeah, a little bit.
tell me about that. Is that something again you're just trying out? Have you seen any results from it? Any benefits from it?
So it's one of those things that I would like to be more consistent with, but have been very inconsistent with, to be very honest. I actually would love to have somebody help me with that in the future, like somebody to do my blog posts. But I've more so done that so that I could have some content for Pinterest. I'm really trying Pinterest marketing right now for the stock shop.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm just now really starting to dip my toes into. But last month I sat down and kind of tried to reevaluate. Now I've got more services and packages. Where are the better places for audiences for each of them? And I decided that like Instagram and Facebook felt better for my services, and Pinterest seemed smarter for the stock shop. So I'm trying out kind of separating them a little bit more in the places that I'm pushing them.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't give a lot of feedback on the blog yet, though, because I've kind of had some on there, but I haven't done much with it yet.
Yeah, no, that's all good. And we actually launched a Pinterest account for one of our other brands, and it's working really well. Like we're seeing
Awesome.
the traffic. So I do believe in that platform and channel for certain brands, and for what you do with design, branding, I think it's perfect. So
Awesome.
that feels good for me as well when you mention that. So look, it's been there's been some great advice for me. One of the key things I'm taking away from this conversation is the way you've split the branding between personal, business, and visual. I think that's I personally when I talk to clients about this, I speak about it from a different perspective. I talk about messaging, story, then design. But I love how you've broken out that might have to steal that. So
Go for it.
I guess it's on video now, so you've got
Yeah.
evidence that I've stolen it. But you know, outside of that, we've got entrepreneurs and business owners listening in. You know, you've got some great experience in your space pre quitting your job, and now you've been working full time as a business owner, trying out different things. That I get the sense of you're trying this out, trying that out, and you know, it reminds me of what I was like in the first 6 months. Is there anything that you wish someone would have said to you right at the beginning to say, don't do this or watch out for this, that you can share with other businesses?
Um, so I think there's probably two things. And I can't say that people didn't say this to me per se, but I probably didn't listen. When I first started building my business, I very much was a perfectionist about it. I wanted everything done, everything to be like perfectly tied up with a bow so I could roll it out for launch day. And I kind of wish I hadn't even worried about like a launch and had just like put things out as they went. And I kind of ended up scaling things back a whole lot to just the necessaries because I could tell I was going to burn myself out before I started because I was trying to do all the things. But you don't have to have it perfect. You don't even have to have a website or all the things together. Like, get your product minimum viable. You hear people say it all the time, but it really is so true. It can be like the littlest thing that you can put out to make money. It could still
Yeah.
make you money and give you a good rolling start. And you kind of like won't know all the things you need to know to build your brand until you start putting it out there. So don't try to like build the brand to launch if it's your first.
Mm.
Maybe if you've had some businesses before, that might be a little bit different, but your first personal brand, build it as you go. The other thing I would say is don't be so nervous for everybody to know what you're doing. I like, it was kind of like I wanted to secretly build and then like put it out there just to the, the internet and not like tell people I knew, which is the craziest thing ever, but it feels very vulnerable when you're building something. And I see my clients do that a lot. I'm like, just put it out there. People want to support you. They want to celebrate you. They want to lift you up. So don't be afraid.
It's that thought, isn't it? What if they see me fail? I think is
Yes.
often the driver behind not doing that. So, no, love that advice, Hannah. This has been great. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, for sure. So homeshousecreative.com is my website. And I am on Facebook, but I'm mostly active on Instagram right now. So it's at homeshouse creative. Yeah.
Awesome.
Had to remind myself.
Well, everyone go follow Hannah. Hannah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.